And welcome back to the Premier Challenge here at Total Collectibles. My name is Cornell. Once again, joined by Dennis Geisler for our round number 3 coverage between Brandon Davis and Joshua Denk, and we had to bring up Psy Spam again.
Yeah, I'm happy. I love Psy Spam. I I really like this set of Pokemon here, the Armarouge and Didi and Ursaluna. This one, the Blood Moon Ursaluna, which I really like. I'm having fun. I don't know why everyone else is bothered. I have a lot of fun with this.
And the rest of Brandon's team on the screen is going to be the Urshifu, Rapid Strike, the Tornadus, and the Flutter Mane. And meanwhile, Joshua Denk on his tide. Josh is going to have Iron Hands, Roaring Moon, Amoonguss, Heatran, Landorus Therian, and Flutter Mane. So more so a balanced team from Josh, as a lot of his Pokemon are like generally either do damage immediately, or in Roaring Moon's case, set up for Dragon Dance.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be difficult to play Psy Spam against. These Pokemon definitely have ways to deal with it. Also, something we mentioned beforehand, this Flutter Mane is for Joshua's choice specs, and it has Perish Song, which is a interesting setup. I've seen it use Perish before. It's a nice user of that. It can be nice potentially to maybe stall out some of Psy Spam. You can get Psychic Terrain and Trick Room, stall out a turn, forcing them to switch out. I don't know. I'm curious.
Or you can just use Perish Song just as the last 2 Pokemon in the game.
It is also a last 2 Pokemon thing that immediately wins it for you.
And here we go. Round number 3 here in this Premier Challenge. Brandon Davis and Joshua Denk both looking to get so further into the tournament. Flutter Mane, Roaring Moon, the lead for Josh, and Brandon's going to lead the Ursaluna Tornadus, and that's likely going to signal the Tailwind mode out of Brandon, with Roaring Moon for Josh. Going to go ahead and activate his booster energy, boosting its attack stats.
Yeah, and I guess the question here is, what does Blood Moon want to do? It has Throat Spray, it can Hyper Voice. Of course, that Mind's Eye will mean it can hit the Flutter Mane even regardless of anything else. But even still, if you're spending this turn kind of, you're setting up the Tailwind and Hyper Voice, it obviously deals damage, but you're mostly setting up. If this is mostly a setup turn, you might be giving Roaring Moon an opportunity to get a Dragon Dance off, which could be very dangerous.
Well, I mean, it could be dangerous depending on how much damage Ursaluna can do to Roaring Moon, because typically with attack boosters, we usually see them be a little more on the bulkier side of things, as Tornadus gets out the Tailwind for this Ursaluna, which does end up being faster than both these Pokemon, not doing a whole lot of damage, and just as I was saying, if you see an attack booster Roaring Moon, expect it to be a bit more bulkier.
Yeah, and it will get that special attack up.
Oh, just before the knockoff came on, and the Dazzling Gleam gonna hit both these Pokemon. Ursaluna survives, but can't help but think that Roaring Moon could have went for a Dragon Dance.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Now, assuming that was a Dragon Dance, I thought that was going to be a pretty good turn for Joshua. Instead, Ursaluna is in a lot of danger here, obviously.
Not with the Tailwind.
Well, no, with the Tailwind, yeah, it's faster.
It's faster. The Roaring Moon just knocked off the Throat Spray a little too late before it got the chance to activate it. Of course, prompts to protect from this Roaring Moon. What does it? Flutter Mane protect here as well? No. Wait, actually, never mind. It's a choice specs. So Weak Wind Storm going to come out. Does it connect onto the Flutter Mane? It does.
Yeah, and now the question is whether that Blood Moon was launched out, or if it's just another Hyper Voice. No reason not to do that again.
And yeah, there you go. Flutter Mane down, and people always think that Ursaluna Blood Moon is always going to be like the 0 speed Pokemon. You know, the Pokemon that you need the Trick Room for. People forget it actually has a decent speed stat to take advantage of Tailwind.
Yeah, exactly. It's surprisingly capable at working in Tailwind right now. I'm really curious to see how it was trained on Brandon's side. In any case, now. You're scary. That's a scary bear. It's still at very low HP, but it does have the opportunity to still deal lots of damage here and potentially try to end this battle pretty quickly.
And Josh brought it in his Heatran here, but okay, as we see the Tornadus switch out here for Brandon, go into that Urshifu Rapid Strike. So I think the question for Josh's Heatran is, does it Terrasilize? Because if it doesn't, then it's again another 50-50 between whether or not you want to Terrasilize to avoid Earth Power, or if your Earth Powers at all. We're going to see the Ursaluna go Terra into the normal type to boost its Hyper Voice damage output, which in conjunction with that Throat Spray should be another knockout the Roaring Moon for that range. But what does he try to do for Josh? No Terra.
Okay, that's probably fine for Brandon. You're able to get the Roaring Moon out of the way. Perfect. Heatran, worst case scenario is Heatran knocks out Ursaluna here, and that's not a big problem.
Heatran does.
Worst case scenario is a burn here on Urshifu.
Oh my goodness, I was about to say you were about the commentator's person, but instead Ursaluna is just going to fade, so Terra unfortunately is gone for Brandon, but he wanted the Roaring Moon gone anyway, which I think is a fair trade-off, but Joshua still has his Terra to his disposability, and Tornadus brings it in for Brandon, and Josh reveals the Amoonguss for his last Pokemon, so...
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you're Brandon, you go, oh no, all I have is Tornadus and Urshifu Rapid Strike, two great Pokemon that work well together against the last two Pokemon on the other person's team. I'd be pretty satisfied by the point they're at right now. If you're Brandon, you do have to... You have to focus down that Amoonguss as quickly as possible, and you can't really Surging Strikes now. It is a bad matchup for the Urshifu in any case, but...
See the Terra Fairy come out from Heatran for a defensive capability against Surging Strikes, but... I don't know how much damage this is going to be well suited to take. Amoonguss protecting, make sure it doesn't get taunted or Bleak when stormed. As we're going to see the taunt go into the Amoonguss, make sure the sleep turns don't come into play. As I'm trying to check the team sheet, and there is no... Oh, Sword Stance comes out!
Interesting.
This Heatran goes...
What's Heatran going to do? It doesn't have Terra Blast.
No, it doesn't. It just goes for another Heat Wave.
Is,
not enough. And Tailwind's gone.
Tailwind's gone. Tailwind doesn't matter, though. Everything is going to be faster on Brandon's side for the rest of this battle, I'd imagine.
That Sword Stance is huge for this Urshifu, because if it actually gets enough damage to take out the Heatran, or even do enough damage to Amoonguss, it just...
I think what has to happen here is the Urshifu protects, the taunt comes out now onto the Amoonguss from the Tornadus.
Especially at a Rage Powder.
Yeah, now that it has to Rage Powder. So now the Rage Powder's out of the way. Now Urshifu, next turn, will be able to Surging Strikes into that Heatran, which should probably deal with it.
And here is the Heat Wave.
Sure. Okay,
yeah, you're just connect on the Tornado. So Brandon, we did see a Flutter Mane on his back four with that booster energy. So this should be a favorable endgame for Brandon to just win the this game.
This should be fine for Brandon, because I don't think Amoonguss can really do anything to Flutter Mane, and that'll be the most of the remaining matchups, since Urshifu will just kind of destroy that Heatran right now, I think.
And as well as finding out that our Flutter Mane is a booster speed, so it will be outspeeding most of all Josh's Pokemon because of the booster energy being on the Rolling Moon. Unfortunately, not doing enough damage because of that booster energy not being beneficial to its power, but the Sword Stance boosted Surging Strikes well more than enough to take out the Terra Fairy Heatran.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that just makes this a matter of time until the Amoonguss ends up being dealt with. It is Rocky Helmet, so it doesn't have any sustain as well. Might have to Spore. Yeah,
you can't Spore because of the taunt, but Polypuff would have at least tried to heal the Heatran, but given the speed circumstances, it wasn't going to heal anything.
I was going to say, I don't think there was really a way out of that battle. But anyways, really well played. Definitely reminded me a lot of Regulation D in a couple of ways. I mean, obviously the Ursaluna Blood Moon is not there, but the way that you play around the Tornadus, the Urshifu, and the Flutter Mane, a lot of hyper offense, getting that Tailwind up as quickly as possible, and dealing as much damage based on that. And honestly, a lot of value out of the Ursaluna Blood Moon there.
Who says it was only needed for Trick Room?
Yeah, exactly. It did not need Trick Room. In fact, it worked really well under Tailwind, which you really don't think of.
And I have to think Josh did bring enough Pokemon to withstand the Psychic portion of Brandon's team with the Roaring Moon and the Heatran. Unfortunately, it didn't help against the Tailwind portion of the team.
Yeah, exactly. That's the nice thing about Psy Spam conceptually as well, is that you don't need to bring them because they're just two Pokemon. They work very well together, but the other four Pokemon work pretty well. I do worry about that Ursaluna fit sometimes, but broadly, the rest of those Pokemon can work pretty well as a 4 Pokemon core. And it means that Joshua has to prepare for either a full Psy Spam team or a 0 Psy Spam team.
We saw the 0 in game 1, and Josh brought everything in his power to make sure he had enough counters for Indeedee Armor Rouge, but instead of getting those counters, they're getting countered by Ursaluna Blood Moon. Does Josh play around the fact that Brandon may not bring it at all?
Yeah, I mean, you still have to be afraid of it, especially if Brandon wants to play it a little bit more aggressive. I don't know. I'm honestly, I honestly don't know.
Well, there is no Flutter Mane this time. We see the Landorus Therian and Roaring Moon for Josh, and Brandon's going to bring Tornadus Flutter Mane, a typical Sun lead, but there's no Sunsetter to be seen, although the booster energy will substitute that really quickly.
Yeah, exactly. I think Flutter Mane, I think Flutter Mane outspeeds the Choice Scarf Landorus right now. And it'll make a difficult spot for Roaring Moon to just sit around because it will get absolutely destroyed by a Dazzling Gleam.
It's either got to protect immediately or it's going to have to go for the Terra Flying, but Terra Flying, it will be helpful against all of Brandon's Pokemon, but like, I don't think Acrobatics is threatening a knockout ending apart from the Flutter Mane, and I think we do see Josh going for his Terra, and it is the Roaring Moon going to Flying.
Yeah, you kind of have to do that, and it still makes it a difficult spot here, because even if you use that extra turn you've given yourself to Dragon Dance, I still think you're slower.
Especially with the tail end.
Especially with the tail end.
See what happens here. Flutter Mane just goes for the Dazzling Gleam.
Dazzling Gleam will still... Oh, that actually did less than I thought it would.
Rock Slide comes out, connects on both Pokemon. Tornado's taking half health. Flutter Mane takes it pretty nicely. Dragon Dance comes out from Roaring Moon for Josh, and if this Roaring Moon can stall out this Tailwind, that's going to be a lot of power.
Yeah, you could probably Dragon Dance again, to be totally honest. You might get Icy Winded. You might get Bleak Wind Storm speed dropped, but that's not the worst thing in the world. You don't take tons of damage here. I guess Flutter Mane can try to switch up the moves and try to target down the Roaring Moon, but you showed that you're already not taking a ton of damage against Dazzling Gleam. And it's not like Landorus is not threatening right now with Rock Slide. Another Rock Slide could knock out Tornadus.
Instead, we see a Shadow Ball being into the Landorus. I think he also expected Josh to protect his Roaring Moon, but instead there is no protect. We do see Icy Wind knock out the Landorus in return, set Roaring Moon speed back to normal, and I had to think a Knockop's coming.
Yeah, it's definitely possible.
Acrobatics instead. This should be going into the Flutter Mane, and it is, and no more threat of that Flutter Mane, but you're still dealing with the issue of the fact that you're back to neutral speed, and Tailwind's still up.
Yeah, exactly. You still lose the speed matchup right now, but with the right... I don't know, you just have to keep threatening something alongside the Roaring Moon, so that the Roaring Moon still has an opportunity to do something. Oh. For example, the Amoonguss here is an option of the something where you can Rage Powder with the Amoonguss and then just say, try to knock out the Tornadus, I guess? I think it's probably your best option because the Urshifu will probably, it could be a Protect Taunt here. I don't know.
I also could just inadvertently see Rage Powder Acrobatics into this Urshifu, because even though it could be likely to Terrasilize to live to hit, actually no, never mind. Acrobatics into Tornado seems like the safer option, because even if you do get taunted, there's a Rage Powder.
I think Taunt Protect is the safest option from Brandon right now.
No Protect came out. Icy Wind once again from this Tornado goes into both Roaring Moon and Amoonguss, going to lower their speeds a bit. And no matter what Urshifu does here, it's going to be taking damage from this Rocky Helmet.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to take a ton of return damage now, because here, Joshua, you're like, weird, but okay, you take half of your health in return, and I will also deal with your Tornadus. We'll see if it's red as well and just goes into the Urshifu anyways, but I'd imagine that you just target the Tornadus down here.
And the move going to be Acrobatics here. It could be both ways that it could be going towards, and it is just going to be the Tornadus to make sure Amoonguss actually has a lot more leverage now, although Unseen Fist just means that Roaring Moon still is not safe even if it can protect.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, the problem is, how do you deal with this Amoonguss?
Oh, here you go, Double Bear.
You have to, it is Double Bear. I like bears. What a great animal. Yeah, I suppose the best answer here is just dealing as much damage as possible to Amoonguss. That's a dangerous strategy, but it's kind of what you have to do right now. It's tough. It's really difficult because this Amoonguss can just Rage Powder for almost free.
But if it does, that means that Terra Normal Hyper Voice just knocks out both of these Pokemon from that range.
Yeah, which is definitely not the best.
And even then, there's
protect
Roaring
still.
Moon's at -1 speed.
Yeah, Roaring Moon is at -1 speed.
Yeah, there is.
I think you just have to hope, just to hope that Hyper Voice doesn't do that much damage.
Well, how much damage will it be doing after this Terrestrialization? I mean, Growth Spray's not up, so...
Growth Spray's not up yet, but it is Terrestrialized.
There we go, the Terrestrialization onto this Ursaluna here. Roaring Moon just going to protect.
Okay.
Make sure the Ursaluna isn't the one to knock it out. Has to be the Urshifu exactly. Oh yeah, you just do that. Your Rage Powder to make sure that your Roaring Moon is fully protected.
Yeah.
Urshifu takes any unnecessary damage it would have liked to take, but then the Sword Stance comes out.
Sword Stance. And now whatever you have back there in the back is still in danger. The Hyper Voice gets up. I wonder if this stalls out Tailwind. I think we're
This is the last turn of Tailwind anyway, and Amoonguss lives on such low HP.
Okay. This does mean that Amoonguss will take a Rage Powder hit. It can Rage Powder again. Is Roaring Moon faster than Ursaluna at this point?
It's at -1 speed, so I would not think so.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's probably close, but I don't think so. At this point, Ursaluna can just keep clicking Hyper Voice, and there's not a whole lot of downside to it.
No, it isn't, but like, there's no downside because Ursaluna, it's not trained to be super slow.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you saw it punching well in Tailwind, so I think even at -1 speed, it should just mean Ursaluna for Brandon should outspeed Josh's Roaring Moon here.
Well, the worst thing that happens is
it
that
doesn't.
you take damage. Yeah. Yeah, well, and the worst thing that happens right now is you take that Acrobatics.
Oh, no!
And Ursaluna's just bulky enough to take that.
Oh my goodness, I see win, not enough to take the knockout. But no, where's Acrobatics?
I didn't think it was going to be that close, but Ursaluna is just bulky enough to take that hit.
And now it comes down to one Pokemon left for Josh, and with the Landorus down from earlier, Urshifu at +2 attacking, bypass protect, and the Fluttermane coming in.
It's the Fluttermane. I
mean, Dazzling Gleam can still knock out both Pokemon.
It can, and there actually is no Aqua Jet. It's Brick Break, Attack, Sword Stance, Surging Strikes.
Dazzling Gleam gonna knock out both Pokemon, and I think Brandon might have one more Pokemon. I mean, Tornado's knocked out.
I think that's it.
Oh,
wait.
Okay, we lost track of Pokemon count.
Pokemon here. I think that's it. I think Joshua won.
I mean, I saw the Tornadoes go down. Yeah, that was the last Pokemon. Josh survived somehow.
That was a wild game 2 there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was just enough. I mean, at the end of the day, the Roaring Moon getting that Dragon Dance off, getting everything that it needed to for that high-powered acrobatics, it was enough. And especially stalling out that Tailwind, because if Tailwind was still up, Fluttermane absolutely would not have been able to deal with those Pokemon. So, certainly a close one there. I mean, any hit that had landed onto that Fluttermane would have won it for Brandon. And also that Amoonguss. If Amoonguss had not taken that hit with just that tiny sliver of HP remaining, that probably would have been a loss for Josh. So, in any case,
does he bring out a Psychic Pokemon right now?
Now the question is, once again for Brandon, is the Psy Spam worth it?
We saw Roaring Moon, but no Heatran this time.
Yeah.
And as much as I want to say Landorus didn't do much, and we know that Rock Slide was important too.
That Rock Slide was a huge threat at the beginning of the battle.
Yeah, how did we both forget that Fluttermane was still...
Yeah, it was... Hey, a lot happens over the course of a Pokemon battle.
Acrobatics has just been like the reason. Okay, well, I think the game just literally just came down to it. Ursaluna outspeed the Roaring Moon, and even at -1 speed, it needs Tailwind to outspeed.
Yeah, that's how important Tailwind is in this instance, but we'll see. It looks like Brandon's gone for a bit of a different option here. It's always a dangerous option in game number 3. I mean, that was what I was kind of wondering earlier, is if you put yourself in a situation like this, where you win game 1 without your Psy Spam, do you bring it for game 2 to throw them off guard, or do you wait until you potentially lose game 2 with the same strategy before going to Psy Spam in game 3? And it seems like now we're going to game 3 Psy Spam.
Well, not completely, because there's no Armor Rouge on the field right now.
We do see just the Indeedee right now, but
yeah, it's
still Indeedee.
Yeah, it's still Indeedee. We see Fluttermane's from each side, but Joshua not bringing his Roaring Moon to lead. This time, going to lead his Landorus. And I mean, I don't think Trickery could be an option right now for Brandon, but you have to be wary of how much this Flutter Mane is important to you. Oh, big play coming from Brandon. Terra Fairy plus Helping Hand with this Flutter Mane. He wants to take a knockout. At least the Flutter Mane is actually a free slot to take an attack on.
Yeah, this could be a very big turn for Brandon, or a really hard place to work back from. At the same time, it's not like you can't set up your slow, your more slow-moving parts of the Psy Spam setup, because there's not a whole lot of damage threatening in DD right now.
There is another than U-turn from this Landorus.
There is the U-turn, I suppose.
But I mean, for Brandon, going to Terrestrialization to Fairy type, make sure you get a lot of the damage, especially coming in from Helping Hand, Terra Fairy, Moonblast.
Yeah, this will be a lot of damage here. No switch outs, so.
No switch outs at all. And this Flutter Mane thankfully was booster speed, so it will be outspeeding the Choice Scarf Landorus. Moonblast comes out. Will it be a knock out the Flutter Mane from Josh's Flutter Mane? It is not enough. Landorus going to U-turn, doing over half damage to his Indeedee. Going to take a bit of Rocky Helmet contact.
Yeah. It's good damage there. What's important is what this Flutter Mane does here, I think. Because it's got the choice specs, it's got the damage.
It's got the damage, but it won't be knocking out anything anytime soon, unless it's the double up exactly into the Indeedee.
Yeah, I did not think that there was that much damage on the Indeedee, but with that much damage onto the Indeedee, now you lose a lot of your utility that you have around this battle.
And so even though Armor Rouge does come into here, you really have to worry about, I mean, well, you don't have to worry about Shadow Ball, even though expanding, well, you have to worry about expanding Force if you're Josh, but...
A bit, yeah. At this point, it's a pretty good spot for Brandon to be, because your Flutter Mane outspeeds, Dazzling Gleam definitely gets the knockout.
Probably have to Terra Water here.
Yeah, the Amoonguss probably has to Terrastalize, and even still, it'll take a lot of damage to Expanding Force.
Especially given that Life Orb.
Yeah, solo damage Expanding Force with Life Orb. You could switch into
Roaring Moon
as well.
Roaring Moon could just be a switch for Josh.
Come in. Yeah, even then, Roaring Moon will... if you switch into Roaring Moon, it'll get absolutely eviscerated by Dazzling Gleam.
Armor is switching.
Interesting. Not a terrible decision.
Ursaluna just going to be coming in here for Brandon. Trying to fake out Josh, I see.
Yeah.
And no fake out coming in. So Josh is going to stay in for both Pokemon. I think he might have baited the Terra on the Amoonguss, and it was the Terra.
Yeah, I guess if you were going to expect that, no reason not to. The Expanding Force would have done good damage, but not like ridiculous damage. You can maintain it for later in the battle, although you still want to make sure that you get the Expanding Force damage while you can.
Here's the Dazzling Gleam, still boosted by the Terrestrialization. It isn't enough to knock out the Flutter Mane, but what does the Amoonguss do here? If you sport a Flutter Mane, it would have been probably for nothing. If you sport the Ursaluna slot, you get a lot more leverage, but yeah, we're just see the Flutter Mane go to sleep.
Yeah. I mean, it's not useless by any means. That is now a difficult to work with Flutter Mane. And at this point now, you have your options. You can bring in Landorus.
But, like, Landorus isn't doing a lot of damage to you. I mean, yeah, you do damage to Flutter Mane,
it's the sort of thing where it's like everything does damage to Flutter Mane. If you can get Flutter Mane out of the way, you're in a much better spot at
Roaring Moon is the last Pokemon.
Okay, yeah, no reason not to. I mean, at this point, yeah, Roaring Moon is in a great spot because the only thing that was threatening Roaring Moon was
Flutter Mane, which is asleep.
And yeah, now Flutter Mane's asleep. So now you can set up Roaring Moon if you want.
I actually have a really good question to ask right now. It's a +1 speed Dragon Dance and not to outspeed a Flutter Mane with the booster energy. And I have to think the answer is no.
No, it definitely isn't. But if it's able to get one Dragon Dance and then just launch out an Acrobatics, that should deal with Flutter Mane, and Flutter Mane should still be asleep.
Yeah, we see the Dragon Dance come out from this Roaring Moon.
It's going to be really difficult to deal with this Roaring Moon right now. Especially since there's no Terrastal available. You can't like boost your damage or anything.
No, but Amoonguss is going to go down under half.
Blood Moon will finish it off at this point. I forgot that the Hyper Voice plus Blood Moon should deal with it. Oh, but it's Sport anyway, so.
Yeah, now it just comes down to whether or not this Flutter Mane wakes up.
Yeah, exactly.
Which he could wake up this turn and ruin Joshua's hopes and dreams.
Yeah, we'd have to get that 2-turn wake up.
1 turn wake up.
Yeah.
It has to be 2 turns of sleep for Josh to take advantage of that Acrobatics boosted Dragonite's boosted acrobatics with that booster energy and attack. If it doesn't wake up this turn, it's game over, and it does stay asleep.
All right, now we probably start seeing that acrobatics. And there's one.
Fluttermane down, and now it's just down to a Nurse Luna and Armor Rouge for Brandon. Josh still has a Landorus in the back. Amoonguss could just go for a Pollen Puff here because Nurse Luna has to take this turn to sleep, unless it wanted to check a Spore Sword switch in, which it did not do. It said you're just going to heal up the Roaring Moon just to be safe. I mean, you don't think Armor Rouge is going to switch in that slot anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what is the worst that will happen? Armor Rouge will take a ton of damage from acrobatics. I don't know that it takes one acrobatics.
Or a knockoff in this matter.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be...
I mean, we do know that acrobatics is not enough to knock on Ursa Luna unless it was a high roll.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think at this point it's going to be difficult here. I like the decision here for Brandon to try to go for the Trick Room.
Knockoff comes out, and Armor is not going to take it anytime soon.
You're not going to take the... you're not going to get the opportunity, so... Well played. Well played.
Ursula wakes up, though, so we see the Hyper Voice come out. Amoonguss will be going down. Roaring Moon going to go down to half HP. And you still have a Landorus to work with, and no, the Fluttermane fainted earlier. Yeah, you just have the Landorus. It has to switch in, so it's a 2-on-1.
Yeah, I think you just have to... I don't...
No, you just win the game. Acrobatics stopping tantrums is enough.
Yeah, I think it certainly will be enough. I'm trying to think of a way that Brandon could win this, but I'm not seeing the universe.
No, there is not. Joshua, out of all the circumstances to come back and win this game, I did not think Roaring Moon with Dragon Dance would be enough to win it, but that pivotal game, oh yeah, that might have been a high roll from the acrobatics. I actually did a lot less than game 2 did, but who knows if it matters, as it will not matter. Joshua wins the set 2-1 and advances to potentially a 3-0 record if our information serves correctly.
Yeah, and I liked how that was played overall. Obviously, Roaring Moon really showed the value in those last 2 games. Roaring Moon does just have a gigantic attack stat, and when you boost that attack stat, when you give it the Dragon Dance, when you give it that extra value, it's going to start hitting pretty hard, and that was what we saw in those last 2 battles. Even in the last one, the difference on the damage was the non-terrestrial. It didn't terrestrialize into the flying type to get that extra same type attack bonus damage from the acrobatics, and it just didn't matter. It just still did so much damage. Yeah,
and Roaring Moon showing its potential once again in this Regulation E meta game. We have to take a break right now, but we'll be back with round 4, and trust me, boys, you don't want to miss out. A lot of Pokemon action still on the table, and we will be right back.